Hello there, this is Christy Lewis with Christy Lewis Reviews Books Worth Your Time, and I am here with two reviews for you today. It's a double review video of Scythe and Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman, and you can probably guess why. It's because The Toll just came out, which is the third book in the trilogy, and it's going to be enormously popular. Scythe won the Prince honor, and I just read and loved them both. I just had to make these more in-depth review videos for you to enjoy in case you haven't gotten a chance to pick them up yet. Now, neither of these are going to be spoilery reviews until the very end of the video. I will be marking that, and like I said, it's at the very end. You can listen to almost the entire video if you just want to know what these books are about and you want to know what I liked or didn't like about them. This video will be perfect for you if you're trying to figure out books that you can buy for your teenager or your nephew and niece or whoever. These books are fantastic for kids, and I guarantee they will devour these books. So, without further ado, here are my reviews for you. Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I was reading this for the Scythe-along with Books for Life and The Curly Reader. It is about a world where there is no more death, accident, or disease. There's an overpopulation problem, and humanity decrees that there should be certain people called scythes who take care of that, who make sure that some people who are killed stay dead. Because right now, you can be 90 and turn the corner and become 25 again and have your fifth family or whatever. You can die doing almost anything and be revived. That obviously creates a population problem. Scythes go around gleaning people who, according to their thinking, are ready for gleaning. This is about two teenagers, Citra Terranova and Rowan Damish, who are normal teenagers doing their normal thing. They get chosen to be an apprentice to Scythe Faraday, who chooses them because of their strong moral codes. He says that he will pick one of them at the end of their year-long apprenticeship, and the other one will go back to normal life. They end up competing for the job, and it gets complicated when they kind of start to not hate each other. When they start having tests at the meetings of the Scythedom, they end up competing for their lives by the end of this story. That's what the story's about. There are so many clever touches to this society. I really love how there are people at the margins who splat, because committing suicide isn't really committing suicide anymore. It's just going deadish because you can be revived. People do it as an extreme sport or to punish their parents and make their parents pay for them to be revived. There's a lot of interesting little touches like that. That makes it really good sci-fi to me. The characters and their relationships and their psychology are a huge strong point as well of this book. He really fleshes out the premise. Scythes all have different reasons for gleaning the way they do, and the teenagers have different reasons for wanting the job. There are some perks to it, but both of them have different reasons for wanting to continue with it. The plotting is quite good through the book. That's not the strongest thing. I think the strongest thing, like I said, is the characters. You see how different scythes do things. One goes by statistics of how many people of a certain population would die, and another one does things totally differently. And it makes all the scythes more sympathetic, which could be dangerous in a book if this was too similar to real life, because, we don't want to glorify mass murderers, but things like splatting, and there are so many other things like that clearly make this society so different from ours that I think it's actually really interesting to have the scythes all having different ways of doing things, and I think it works really well. The plotting is tight enough that there is no muddy middle. There were some twists at the end that there was really a couple plot things that just were yeah, okay, sure, but they were pretty minor. There was two things that were kind of unbelievable to me, which is one, that nobody believes in God anymore, so that none of the major religions that are around right now are around anymore, because apparently the fact that everybody is immortal makes nobody believe in God anymore, which I don't think that would happen. That to me seems really... Yeah, I don't think that would happen. As a result, though, these people are all looking for meaning. And one of my very favorite things about this book is that the scythes are required to keep a journal, and it's a public journal. Some of the entries into the journal are very philosophical and interesting. I love that they're still ruminating on the meaning of life and how things have changed without death. What prayer means now, and all kinds of really interesting stuff psychologically and philosophically. The journal entries were my favorite part, and there were tons of them, which is really cool. I almost feel like this book was a container for the philosophical musings and the character relationships, but I can't really say that because the plot was good. There was a good plot. It was always moving, and things were always changing. There was one quote that made me laugh from one of the journals, of course. The greatest achievement of the human race was not conquering death. It was ending government. But one of my favorite quotes, a scythe is merely the instrument of death, but it is your hand that swings me. You and your parents and everyone else in this world are the wielders of scythes. We are all accomplices. You must share the responsibility. I love that the scythe manages to make this a choice that all humanity made, which makes you think, man, these scythes really aren't so evil after all. It really humanizes the scythes. He mused on how humans need to be able to have empathy if the scythedom is going to continue being uncorrupted. And unfortunately, in this book, it is exploring the continuing corruption of the scythedom. Early in the days, this is another one of those plausibility issues that I had with the book. There are some rules for people who break the rules, but they haven't had anybody misbehaving, apparently, in the 2 centuries or whatever of the existence of the scythedom. And to me, that definitely stretches plausibility. I don't think that anything can eradicate crime. Nothing can, in my opinion. It's just going to be here all the time, so you should always have ways to deal with it. And the scythedom just really doesn't, and that's where a lot of the conflicts in this book come from. However, I did think that the antagonist had some really subtle points that he made in this book. Some people kind of thought he was more of a cackling villain, oh, he's just pure evil. It's so not morally gray. And actually, I think the journal entries in this made the antagonist a fantastic villain. I thought he was not exactly morally gray, per se, although all of us in the group who were reading this, the Scythe-along group, kind of expect the book 2 to get more into morally gray topics. I think I might have been alone in thinking that the antagonist made some really interesting philosophical points in his journal entries. I thought he was a good villain. I feel like star ratings can be too easily misconstrued, and I'm not very good at them. So I rarely rate books unless I give them 5 stars. The last book that I think I gave 5 stars on this channel was Ragtime by Doctorow. But I'm going to give this one 4 stars because I feel like it's a really strong book and there's just a few things about it that I didn't love. I'm very impressed by this book. I kind of hoped I would be because so many people love it and it won a Prince honor. For a long time I kind of stayed away from it like I did with the Hunger Games initially because I just didn't love the premise, but I'm really glad that we read this. This is Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman, and I did end up reading and really enjoying this one in October. Thunderhead picks up where Scythe left off a year later. It explores new subworlds of Mid-America and the Scythedom, a certain subset of the population called unsavories. We get to hear from a lot of different perspectives in this book, rather than just the teens and a few extras. It was quite a few people at least got a few scenes in here. So I really liked that wide range. I know a lot of sequels do that, and I think Shusterman pulled that off pretty well here. Thunderhead really explores the justice system. I was a little bit nervous going into it because I knew that it was going to be doing that. That was one of the things about Scythe that struck me as just a little bit yeah, right. There has been no infighting. They haven't had any corruption that they needed to handle, or they just haven't handled it. They've just ignored the corruption in the Scythedom. I was a little bit nervous going into this that it was going to be just another young adult revolution, but actually Shusterman did a really good job exploring the justice system. It wasn't really dumb, anything that a teenager could fix. There was a really interesting mechanism for accomplishing justice. The opponent is just really good at messing with it. I didn't see it coming. A lot of the plot twists surprised me in this one. I saw 1 or 2 of them coming. Same thing with Scythe, except Scythe, I felt like it was a little bit more predictable for me. So I gave Scythe 4 stars, but I gave Thunderhead 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this. It's slightly less philosophical than Scythe. Shusterman did not include Scythe journals in this one because we aren't exploring the job of a scythe. We're exploring how the scythes are kept in line. People who don't like to be kept in line, which is the unsavories, which we didn't talk about at all in the last book. So there's a little bit of vigilante justice going on in this one, which I enjoyed it more than I anticipated that I would. And the plot twists at the end were just amazing. I thought the settings were amazing, the world building, the character relationship. We also explored the Thunderhead. And I like that it wasn't super predictable. Like, when I read Illuminae, I didn't find that plotting with the AI like, oh, it's so shocking. I really enjoyed the way Shusterman handled the AI in this one. We also learn about experimental regions in the country that don't have the same amount of attention from the Thunderhead and regulation. They're like regions where the Thunderhead is like trying out different styles of government in those areas. And I really enjoyed that because I think that's really interesting. I'm interested in politics. This book was fairly political. Like, he kind of has like an Andrew Yang sort of idea that in the future, when technology replaces human workers to some degree, like it can go faster and humans are replaced by technology and jobs, we're gonna have to control that so that people still feel like they have a purpose. He talks about the universal basic income idea in here. That's the route that they have taken in West America and a few other places in the world, but there are also places that don't do it that way. And I felt like it was a little bit pie in the sky that the places that were forbidden to work had such higher levels of humanitarian work and stuff like that, because statistics don't necessarily bear that out, at least with both genders. I could be totally off about this. I think this was also an Andrew Yang thing that I heard in an interview with Ben Shapiro. He was talking about how men tend to not spend their time in humanitarian efforts if they have free time. Xenocrates also said something that I thought was really interesting. Best to get an election over as quickly as possible before everyone became even more bitter and disgusted than they already were. They have learned from the abuses of political contests in the age of mortality. I was thinking, wow, how would America be different if we held our elections more quickly? Would people be less obsessed with politics for the year and a half leading up to elections? Would there be fewer ups and downs? Would people be more satisfied? Who knows? We also learn about some founding mythology of the Scythedom, which I'm super excited about because there's one character whose plot is to discover some of that mythology in this book, and I guess in the next book we're going to explore further into that. We didn't get very far into that exploration in this book because there were, like I said, lots of plots and characters going on in this one, but we did start that journey in this one. I'm pretty excited about that subplot. We also have the great character relationships and character moments that we did in the last book, although a little bit less so on the relationships because everybody's kind of doing their own thing. There are very few people that are in the same place at the same time for a period of time where they can get to know each other really well. However, we do see like the different gleaning styles of Citra and Rowan, and they are compared a little bit. I really think that Citra's way of doing things is interesting, very different from either of her mentors. And obviously, so is Rowan's. There was a few character moments that hit me really hard. One that involves Tiger, which is Rowan's best friend from the first book. But there was also a lot of moments of levity that I just loved, where like Xenocrates is watching this Scythe who is sea-dewing, and the Scythe is still wearing his robe. He's on the sea-dew wearing his robe and he ends up flying into the air, like parasailing on accident. And Xenocrates says, "The Scythedom was cursed with idiots. They might have been blessed with wisdom, but common sense was a trait sorely lacking among them." So there's a lot of like funny moments like that that I also enjoyed. Good mix of moving and funny. There were also a few other quotes that I really enjoyed that I just wanted to read for you guys. "If we were judged by the things we most regret, no human being would be worthy to sweep the floor." I resonate so hard with that. That's exactly what the Scythedom is. High school with murder. Now I'm gonna have like a short spoilery section just so I can explore some theories. So I'm gonna put a little icon in the corner here. When the icon disappears, spoilery section will be over. Here we go, spoilers coming. The tone cults are becoming really interesting in this book. They condone resistance to unnatural death, and it makes me wonder if that is one of the ways that this series might end up solving the overpopulation crisis, because clearly the Scythedom is going wrong somehow. So either we're going to have to fix the Scythedom, or he's going to have to restrict birth rates, or maybe people are just going to have to start dying natural deaths again rather than re-upping every time they're ready to look younger again. I love the part where Goddard is telling Rowan, "You won't even be a footnote in history. I'm going to make you disappear." And Rowan's like, "I can see how that would be a horrifying thought for you, but I don't have a burning need to make my existence the center of the universe. Disappearing is fine with me." It was just like, thank you, Rowan, you're awesome. On pages 421 and 422, the Thunderhead basically says that democracy was an embarrassment that we'll be glad to forget someday. And I don't really understand that. Like, obviously, there's some problems with our politics right now in America. I feel like we're so divided, and there's got to be a way to fix it. And maybe the faster election cycle would be the way to do that, with less campaigning. But I wouldn't say that democracy is an embarrassment. Maybe that's something that the author is setting up that is going to be a problem in the future, where the Thunderhead is going to be causing problems because he believes that democracy is somehow evil. That very well could be the case, or not. Maybe that's a message that Shusterman wants to put out there. So that's just some speculation on the future for Toll. Also, I don't understand why Scythes can't marry. Like, I think people can minister and do difficult jobs much better if they have the support of a spouse, in my opinion. Not to say that everybody needs a spouse, but I think if you are pining after somebody, or you really feel that need for companionship and you have it offered to you, it's a gift. You don't get everything in life that you want, but if you can have that, that's a huge bonus, and it would help the Scythes with their really difficult job. I think that they should have that ability. Okay guys, that is all for my reviews of Scythe and Thunderhead, and I hope you enjoyed them, and thank you so much for watching this video! If you did enjoy this, please like and comment anything, any thoughts that you have, and you can subscribe. And if you want to get all my notifications whenever I post a video, you can just hit the little bell icon. If you want to comment, I would love to hear if you have read these books, if they're on your TBR, and any thoughts about the book. If you've read them, I'd love to hear your theories for the Toll. If you've already read the Toll, tell me down below and tell me how it is, because I'm still waiting for it, and I'm just like, I need news! So yes, I hope to be hearing from you guys soon. Thanks so much!